You know, as we get older, it's natural to start noticing little changes. Some days, we might feel a bit more tired than usual. Or maybe we're not as hungry as we once were. And sometimes, those changes can leave us wondering, is this just part of aging, or is it something more? If you've ever had that thought, you're not alone. Many of us, especially as we move into our later years, start to notice shifts, both in our bodies and in how we feel emotionally. And while it's not always easy to talk about, understanding these changes can help us prepare, find peace, and even make the most of the time we have. So today, I want to share with you some of the signs that often appear in the months before passing, not to frighten you, but to offer clarity and comfort. Because when we know what to look for, we can focus on what truly matters, cherishing moments, connecting with loved ones, and living with intention. Now, these signs can vary from person to person, but many families and caregivers notice common patterns. Let's start by talking about the first few, the subtle shifts that might show up before anything else. First sign, a noticeable drop in energy. You know that feeling when you wake up in the morning, and even before your feet touch the floor, you already feel worn out? Not the kind of tiredness that comes from a bad night's sleep or a busy week, but something deeper, like your very life force is quietly ebbing away. This is often one of the first and most telling signs that the body is beginning its natural transition in the final months of life. It starts subtly. Maybe your loved one used to get up at dawn, make breakfast, and tend to their garden, but now they linger in bed a little longer. The morning routine that once felt effortless now requires tremendous effort. Brushing teeth becomes a chore. Getting dressed feels like running a marathon. Even sitting up in bed to sip a cup of tea might leave them winded. This isn't ordinary fatigue. It's not something that can be fixed with an extra hour of sleep or a strong cup of coffee. It's a fundamental shift in how the body manages energy. Where once their system could rally and push through, now every movement, every thought, every interaction draws from a much smaller well of reserves. You might notice them pausing more often during simple activities. Walking from the bedroom to the kitchen might require a rest halfway. Conversations that used to be lively now happen in shorter bursts, with longer silences in between. Even the act of chewing food can feel exhausting, leading to smaller meals or skipped ones altogether. Naps become more frequent, not out of boredom, but necessity. Where they might have once resisted daytime sleep, now they welcome it, not just as a comfort, but as a biological imperative. Their body is conserving energy for the most essential functions: breathing, circulation, the steady beat of the heart. Everything else becomes secondary. For family members watching this unfold, it can be deeply unsettling. We're conditioned to think of fatigue as something to fight, to push through, or overcome. But this kind of weariness isn't a problem to be solved. It's the body's wisdom at work, a gradual release of non-essential activities so it can focus on what matters most in these final months. There's also an emotional component to this exhaustion. The effort required to engage with the world, to follow conversations, to react to news, even to express love, can feel overwhelming. You might see your loved one's eyes glaze over during visits, not from disinterest, but because the act of processing words and formulating responses takes more energy than they have to spare. This is where small adjustments can make a big difference in their comfort. Letting them rest when they need to, without guilt or pressure to stay active. Keeping visits shorter but more meaningful. Quiet companionship often means more than lively chatter in these moments. Adjusting expectations so that a good day might simply mean sitting in the sunshine for 15 minutes rather than accomplishing tasks. It's important to understand that this energy decline typically happens in waves. There might be days when they seem almost like their old self, sitting up straighter, talking more, even showing interest in an old hobby. These bursts can be confusing for caregivers, who might wonder if they're imagining the overall decline. But these moments of clarity are often the body's final gifts, precious opportunities for connection that should be cherished without expectation that they mark a permanent improvement. Underlying all of this is a profound physiological truth. The body knows how to die just as it knew how to grow, how to heal, how to thrive. This slowing down isn't failure or giving up. It's the deepest kind of wisdom, The same intelligence that guided their first breath now guiding their last. For those witnessing this change in themselves, there can be fear or frustration. Our culture prizes vitality, independence, constant motion. To need help turning over in bed, to require assistance bathing, to struggle with things that once felt simple, these losses can feel humiliating if we see them through society's lens. But through nature's lens, they're simply part of the journey, as natural as leaves falling in autumn. The most loving response, whether you're experiencing this yourself or caring for someone who is radical acceptance. Not resignation, but a clear-eyed acknowledgement that this is what living looks like now. Energy conserved for quiet smiles rather than long walks. Strength used for squeezing a hand rather than holding up a conversation. Life measured in moments of connection rather than productivity. In these final months, fatigue becomes the body's language, telling us what it needs: more rest, less stimulation, gentler movements. Our job isn't to fight this message, but to listen, to adapt, and above all, to remember that even as the body slows, the heart's capacity for love remains undiminished until the very end. This first sign, this profound tiredness, isn't an ending. It's a transition. And like all transitions, it asks for our patience, our presence, and our willingness to let go of how things were so we can fully be with how they are now. Second sign, loss of appetite and changes in eating habits. Have you ever sat down to a meal and realized you just don't feel hungry anymore? Or maybe food doesn't taste the way it used to? This is another common sign. The body's need for energy decreases, and so does the desire to eat. You might notice smaller portions, skipped meals, or even a lack of interest in favorite foods. It's not uncommon for someone to say, "I'm just not hungry," even when they haven't eaten much. And while it's tempting to push for more, to encourage just a few more bites, it's important to remember that this is the body's way of preparing. At this stage, what matters most is comfort. Small, easy-to-digest foods, like soups or smoothies, can be soothing. But more than anything, it's about being gentle, with ourselves and with those we care for. Third sign, withdrawing from social activities. Now, this one can be especially tough to see. Someone who once loved family gatherings, phone calls with friends, or even outings to the local park might start pulling away. They may seem quieter, less engaged, or even uninterested in conversations. It's important to understand that this isn't about rejection or sadness, though those feelings can certainly play a role. Often, it's simply that the focus is turning inward. Energy is limited, and social interactions, even joyful ones, can feel overwhelming. That doesn't mean connection isn't important. Even sitting quietly together, holding a hand, or sharing a familiar story can mean the world. Presence matters more than conversation. These first three signs, fatigue, changes in eating, and social withdrawal, are often the earliest to appear. But there are others too, and in the next part, we'll talk about the emotional and physical shifts that can come next. Because when we know what to expect, we can respond with love, patience, and understanding. You know, when we talk about the later stages of life, it's not just the body that changes. Our emotions and thoughts do too. And sometimes those shifts can be just as telling as the physical ones. In the last part, we talked about how energy fades, how appetites change, and how social interactions might become quieter. But there's more to this journey, deeper layers that help us understand what's happening, not just in the body, but in the heart and mind as well. So let's continue this conversation with a few more signs that often appear in those final months. These aren't just things to watch for, they're reminders to slow down, to listen, and to cherish the moments we have. Fourth sign, increased sleep and difficulty waking. There comes a time when sleep becomes more than just sleep, it transforms into a quiet sanctuary, a borderland between this world and whatever comes next. If you've spent time with an elderly loved one in their final months, you may have witnessed this profound change in their sleeping patterns. What once was a predictable rhythm of waking and sleeping becomes something altogether different, long, deep periods of rest that seem to claim more and more of their day. At first, it might look like simple tiredness. They doze off during conversations or after meals. But gradually, these naps extend longer, become more frequent, until whole afternoons slip away in uninterrupted slumber. You might find them sleeping through visits from friends or family, through meals they once looked forward to, through television shows they used to enjoy. When they do wake, there's often a moment, sometimes longer, of confusion. They may ask what day it is, or why it's dark outside when they thought it was morning. The boundaries between night and day, between dreaming and wakefulness, begin to soften like edges of a watercolor painting left in the rain. This shift happens because the body is redirecting its dwindling energy reserves to sustain only the most vital functions. The elaborate dance of consciousness, staying alert, processing sensory information, maintaining orientation, requires more energy than the body can now spare. So it retreats more and more into the refuge of sleep, where less energy is needed. It's not that they're choosing to sleep, their biology is making the choice for them, with a wisdom deeper than conscious thought. What's particularly remarkable is how the quality of their sleep changes. You may notice their breathing becomes more regular and peaceful during these long rests, none of the tossing and turning of ordinary sleep, but a profound stillness. Sometimes their lips will move as if in conversation, or their hands will make small gestures as though greeting someone unseen. Many caregivers report their loved ones speaking to long-departed family members, revisiting childhood homes, or reliving important moments from their past. These aren't hallucinations or signs of distress, but rather indications that the veil between memory and present reality is thinning. For those keeping vigil, this can be both beautiful and unsettling. To hear your mother call out to her own mother who passed decades ago, or to watch your husband have animated conversations with his long-gone army buddies, it can feel like you're witnessing something sacred and mysterious. The medical term for this is terminal restlessness, but that clinical phrase fails to capture the profound spiritual dimension many families observe. In cultures around the world, these experiences are often interpreted as the dying person beginning their transition, with one foot in this world and one in the next. The disorientation upon waking stems from this same transition. When they open their eyes, it takes longer for them to remember where they are, who is with them, what time period they're in. They might think they're a child again, or mistake their daughter for their sister, or believe they're at a childhood home rather than in their bedroom. This isn't dementia in the conventional sense, it's the mind's natural unraveling, like a boat slowly loosing its moorings. The present becomes less distinct while the past grows more vivid. As caregivers, our instinct might be to reorient them, to insist on the date, the time, our proper names and relationships. But increasingly, hospice workers advise against this. Correcting them often causes more distress than comfort. Instead, they recommend entering their reality gently. If they think you're someone else, play along. If they're reliving a memory from 70 years ago, listen with interest. These moments of confusion are often when they're most emotionally present, even if not factually accurate. Creating the right environment becomes crucial during this stage. Soft lighting that doesn't startle when they wake. Familiar voices speaking in calm tones. The absence of sudden noises or harsh interruptions. Many families find that maintaining a quiet routine, perhaps reading aloud, playing their favorite music softly, or simply sitting in peaceful silence, helps ease the transition between sleep and waking. The physical space matters too, a comfortable bed turned frequently to prevent sores, light blankets that don't constrain, windows that allow natural light to mark the passage of day without glare. It's important to understand that this increased sleeping isn't withdrawal from life, but rather a different way of being alive. Even in deep sleep, they may still hear and understand more than we realize. Many dying people report being aware of conversations happening around them even when they appeared completely asleep. This is why hospice nurses advise continuing to speak to them normally, to share memories, to express love, even when there's no visible response. The rhythm of this sleep will gradually change as the final days approach. The periods of wakefulness become briefer, the sleep deeper. Eventually there may be only slight flutters of the eyelids, small movements of the fingers, to indicate they're still present at all. But even then, the essential person remains. The sleep hasn't stolen them away, it's simply become the medium through which they're making their journey. For those keeping watch, these long hours of silence beside a sleeping loved one can be surprisingly meaningful. There's a peculiar intimacy in guarding someone's rest this way. The outside world's demands fade. Time stretches and slows. In these quiet vigils, many caregivers find unexpected gifts, moments of clarity about what truly matters, resolutions to old conflicts, or simply the profound privilege of ushering someone home. This increased sleep isn't something to fight against or view as a setback. It's nature's kindest anesthesia, a gradual dimming of consciousness that allows the final transition to occur with minimal distress. Our role isn't to wake them, but to create conditions where their sleep can be peaceful, where their dreams can be sweet, and where their journey, when the time comes, can be made with dignity and love. The poet Rumi wrote, "Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes. Because for those who love with heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation." In these final sleeps, we're given the chance to learn this truth firsthand. Fifth sign: confusion or restlessness. Now, this one can be harder to witness. Someone who's always been sharp might suddenly forget names, get lost in familiar places, or even become agitated for no clear reason. They might fidget with blankets, try to get out of bed when they're too weak to stand, or say things that don't quite make sense. This confusion isn't always constant. It can come and go, almost like waves. One moment, they might be perfectly lucid. The next, they're somewhere else entirely. And while it's distressing to see, especially if they were once so independent, it's often a sign that the mind is beginning to let go. In these moments, patience is everything. Instead of correcting them, we can step into their world. If they talk about seeing their parents or reliving old memories, we can listen, nod, and hold their hand. Arguing or insisting on reality often only adds to their frustration. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is simply be there. Sixth sign: physical changes, breathing, temperature, and skin. Now, let's talk about the body. In those final months, you might notice small but meaningful shifts, things like uneven breathing, cool hands and feet, or skin that seems paler, almost translucent. Breathing patterns can change, sometimes fast and shallow, other times slow with long pauses in between. This is normal, even if it's unsettling to hear. The body is doing what it needs to do. You might also notice their skin becoming mottled, blotchy or purplish, especially on the arms and legs. And their hands and feet may feel cooler to the touch as circulation slows down. These changes aren't painful, but they can be a signal that the body is beginning its final transition. And while it's hard to see someone we love go through this, these signs can also prepare us to say the things we need to say, to offer comfort, and to simply be present. These signs, sleeping more, moments of confusion, and the body's quiet changes, are all part of a natural process. But there's one last piece to this conversation, and it's perhaps the most important of all: how we respond, how we find peace, and how we make these moments meaningful. In the next part, we'll talk about ways to offer comfort, both to those we love and to ourselves, as we navigate this tender time. You know, when we talk about the signs that often appear in life's final chapter, it's easy to focus solely on what's slipping away: the energy, the appetite, the clarity. But there's another side to this journey, one that's just as real and just as important. It's the side where love deepens, where small moments become sacred, and where we're given the chance to say the things we've always wanted to say. In these last months, or even weeks, there's an opportunity to create peace, both for the person transitioning and for those of us walking beside them. So let's talk about how we can do that. Not with fear or sadness, but with grace, understanding, and even gratitude for the time we've shared. The power of presence. One of the most precious gifts we can offer someone in their final months is simple: our presence. You don't need to fill the silence with chatter or fix anything. In fact, sometimes the most meaningful moments happen when we say nothing at all, just sitting together, holding a hand, or sharing a favorite song. You might notice that hearing is often the last sense to fade, so even if someone seems unresponsive, they may still find comfort in the sound of your voice. Read to them. Tell them stories. Thank them. Say, "I love you," as often as you can. These words don't need to be profound, just true. Letting go of regrets. For many of us, watching a loved one decline brings up complicated feelings, guilt over things left unsaid, worry that we didn't do enough, or even relief that their suffering will end. All of this is normal. But this is also the time to gently release those burdens. If there's something you've been meaning to say, forgiveness, gratitude, or just a memory you've always cherished, say it now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you're in. And if your loved one can no longer respond, trust that your words still matter. The heart hears what the mind may not. Physical comfort in the final days. As the body prepares for its final transition, comfort becomes the priority. Small things make a difference. Keep the room warm but fresh, soft blankets, a cracked window for fresh air. Offer sips of water or ice chips to ease dryness, but don't force food or drink. Gentle touch, stroking a hand, brushing hair, can be soothing when words are no longer enough. You might also notice changes like irregular breathing or a distant gaze. This is the body's natural way of slowing down. Hospice nurses often remind families that this isn't painful. It's like a candle flickering gently before it goes out. Grieving before the goodbye. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Grief doesn't start after death. It begins the moment we realize we're losing someone. And that's okay. Let yourself feel it. Cry when you need to. Laugh at old memories. Sit in the quiet and just breathe. If you're the one nearing the end of your journey, know that it's okay to feel ready. It's okay to be tired. And it's okay to let go when the time comes. There's no right or wrong way to face this, only your way. However this journey unfolds, whether you're walking it yourself or standing by someone you love, remember this: dying is not just an ending. It's part of living. And in these final months, there can still be moments of beauty, connection, and even peace. So take the photos. Tell the stories. Hold the hands. And when the time comes, may you find comfort in knowing that love doesn't end with a last breath. It stays. Closing scene. The host smiles softly, eyes warm with understanding. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. And if you found it helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might need it, because these are the conversations that remind us we're never alone. Until next time, take care of each other, and take care of your heart.